Do you feel like your creative journey has been a twisty one? As our girl Sheryl Crow would say, a winding road? Well, what if the messy, nonlinear path that you've been on and questioning is actually proof that you're right on time? If you've ever felt behind, if you've ever felt confused about your calling or scared that your story no longer makes sense, you are not alone. There are many of us out there who are either currently questioning or have questioned in the past what the heck they're doing. Today's episode is here to remind you that your path doesn't have to look perfect to be powerful, and that the power is actually in the mess. Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Creative with Lauren LaGrasso. I'm Lauren LaGrasso. I'm a Webby Award-winning podcast host and producer, singer-songwriter, public speaker, and creative coach. And this show is meant to give you tools to love, trust, and know yourself enough to claim your birthright to creativity and pursue your wildest dreams. Today's guest is Reid. He's an audience growth expert, content development producer, and brand strategist who has worked with iconic brands and companies like Nickelodeon, Paramount, Frederator, and the Producers Guild of America. Before all the big titles, he was just a young creative in Michigan and then in New York, selling merch, bagging groceries, navigating the uncertainty of an early career, and quietly wondering if he'd ever make it. In this episode, Nick shares his honest, hilarious, and deeply insightful story of reinvention, reminding us creativity is not a straight line. It's a winding path with a lot of power in the pivots and reinvention. Also, Nick is one of my college buddies, so it was so much fun to have this conversation with him, and it was a great catch up and heart to heart from two theater kids. What could be better than that? From this conversation, you'll learn how to bounce back from career turbulence and creative rejection, the surprising link between inner child healing and creative confidence, tools for strategic audience building as an indie creator, and why self-worth can't come from titles or outward validation. It's always an inside job. If you're in the messy middle, questioning everything, this episode will remind you you're not behind. All right, now here he is. Reid. Well, I'm so happy we're finally doing this. Nick, you know I love you. I've loved you for a long time. It's been such a joy to watch your career rise and to really watch you step into being not only a powerful person in your career, but also a thought leader. And you're just a wonderful, wonderful human. And welcome to Unleash Your Inner Creative.
Oh, that's great. I was wondering if the podcast had begun.
It had.
We are here.
It had and it has. We did it.
Perfect. Here we are. Look at us.
Yeah. So I kind of like to start at the beginning because I do believe creativity is deeply linked to the inner child. And I wonder, when you trace the lines of your life, was there some sort of creative inciting incident for you? For me, it was like when I was 3, I went to see a play and I turned to my mom and I said, "Mommy, I want to be up there doing that." Does anything come to mind for you?
There is something that comes to mind for me, and it's quite embarrassing. But before I go into that, I want to say thank you so much for having me on your show. Your 2-time Webby Award-winning program, which is amazing, by the way, in case people don't know how huge the Webbies are. I'm a voter for the Webbies, so I just wanted to say that first and foremost, and a thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nick.
Of course. But the first thing that comes to mind for me is definitely, so it's really embarrassing, but there's this Barney and Friends tape that I was addicted to watching when I was younger. And it was Barney live in New York City. And it was at Radio City Music Hall that they did this big live performance, because that's when Barney Mania was huge in the 90s. And I watched that tape repeatedly. I actually did not know that wasn't Broadway. I thought that Radio City Music Hall was just like what Broadway was. So I was addicted to watching that videotape. I became increasingly addicted to just the stage, the tricks and the special effects that they used in that show. And then also just the idea of performing for an audience. Through watching, that Barney live tape.
Shout out to Barney, where it all began.
Yes, truly. For many of us, absolutely.
Wow. And that's so interesting that now you've ended up working in children's programming. It's like you literally kind of made a loop for your inner child.
Yes, yes. I think about that often, actually,
That's so
and how
beautiful.
we now try to pave the way, or in many ways heal the inner child
Yeah.
by putting out works and programming that you would have wanted, or really what kids need today,
Yeah. It's so true. Making kids stuff is so healing to your younger self. But
for
speaking of
sure.
kids stuff, I mean, I feel like college, I was basically a fetus. We met at Michigan State, and you went from Michigan State, from getting your degree in theater, to New York. So tell me about taking that leap. Like, how did you do it? It's scary moving from Michigan to a huge ass city like New York. How did you get the gumption to make that leap?
Yeah. So I really love taking risks, but I'm also quite practical as well. So I was actually going to move out to Los Angeles first after going to school for theater, and then instead decided to move to New York after one, coming to LA and realizing that I just didn't have the things needed in my arsenal in order for me, how I felt that I could be successful in Los Angeles. I was like, I need to be scrappy. I need to be able to really leverage opportunities that are in front of me. And I saw a lot of obstacles for myself when I came and visited Los Angeles. And before I even actually moved to New York City, I had people saying, "Hey, if you come out here, I can set you up with an internship. Oh, I know these people, or even I have an apartment that you can like stay in with all of us." You know what I
I
mean?
do.
So it was a chance that I ended up taking that I'm really, really grateful for, just packing up and moving, having never even visited New York City before. Made the move to move there because I had essentially a a bit of a playbook that I had started developing for myself of what this was going to end up looking like. You know, we ended up in our schooling, we did our 5 year plans for what the next 5 years after graduation was going to look like. And honestly, I ended up doing a lot of that stuff from that list in the first 5 years of me
Wow.
being in New York City. Yeah, yeah.
I did
So
almost
one of the
nothing.
really,
I
do you
just
remember what was on it on
I
yours?
well, first of all, I thought I was moving to New York, so number one, not correct. I ended up moving to LA. I started with an internship on the Ellen Show, which is something I never would have thought to put on my 5 year plan. And then, even though I wanted it, I went around saying I'm going to intern on the Ellen Show someday. And Brandon Piper was the one that made the introduction that helped me get that internship. Um,
Really?
Really? He
That's
knew
wild.
somebody who was a PA there. And like the week that I applied, she ended up getting moved up to production coordinator who hired the interns. So it was just really divine timing. And then I definitely didn't have becoming a singer songwriter on my bingo card or moving into like radio hosting and producing. So for me, I don't love 5 year plans. Like I think it's good to have goals, but I think when you stick too rigidly to a plan, you cancel out a lot of magic and possibility.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with you there. I think the 5 year plan was good for me. So I had like somewhere to start.
Yeah,
I'm
guidelines.
very, yeah, yeah. I'm very big on straying away from the path, but I feel like I had to have a path to start on at some point.
Yeah.
So I say this to people all the time, especially junior folks who are coming up. It's like you have to make some type of decision. You have to, you know, be open and available to things that come to you, but you have to start somewhere, you know. So
Yeah.
whether it was like what you were saying, oh, I'm going to go to New York City just kidding, I'm going to go to LA. You had in your plan that you were going to go to New York City, and then something in you, something said, actually, I'm going to pursue this other opportunity instead. But I feel like you had to have in your mind that you were going to New York City first
Yeah.
in order to get to LA.
You're right. Like having some sort of goal leads you somewhere. And I think Michigan State, I have to give them a shout out. Like I know a lot of people who graduated from theater programs that did absolutely nothing to prepare them for the real world. And like people from like very prestigious, highfalutin theater programs. I will say like that senior seminar class that we're discussing where we had to make the 5-year plan was really helpful in orienting you that like, oh, I have to go out and like be a person. It's not just going to be like, let's put on a little fun production with my friends. Like I'm going to have to figure out how to pay rent, which like we all know logically, but then figuring out how you could actually do it, it was really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things that you don't necessarily think about. Those things, even in that same senior seminar class, one of the things that was so useful that I still use to this day is around networking. Those aren't skill sets that you necessarily think about when you're, putting on a show in college and thinking about what your future is going to be. But these are skill sets that end up being so essential that you're using every day. How to attend a networking event, how you can leverage a buddy system while you're there, how to bring up topics in the conversation, how to skirt out of a conversation you no longer want to be in. These are all extremely and it's so strange to even say that we had, I don't know if your class did this, but my class did have a day where it was just networking. They brought like people locals to the college, and then we had to do a networking day with them.
No, we didn't do that. I think that
Yeah.
is such a smart idea. I mean, I do have this memory going into my like moving out here. I did Summer Circle Theater, which is basically Michigan State's version of summer stock theater. And it's outdoor, it's awesome. And there was this big fundraising event and they invited a lot of alumni. And I remember this guy, Ernest Hardin Jr., he was on the
Shout
Jeffersons.
out.
Shout out to Ernest. Do you know him?
No, I don't,
He's
but
awesome.
I love a name drop.
So he was from MSU, graduated from MSU, was on the Jeffersons in the 70s. And I met him and he gave me his card. And I remember like I like got up all my courage that summer. I'm like, you can do this. You can do this. Just call him. And I called him and I was like, hello, my name is Lauren Lagrasso. I met you at the networking event. I think I might be moving out to LA in the fall. Like, I'm interested to talk to you about your experience there being an actor. And he was like, what the hell? Like, I think he really didn't think I was going to call him. But that was my experience of like networking in college. And yeah, I do think that those things are invaluable. And it's so important because I think, something that you were bringing up with your experience of moving to New York and why that felt like a smoother transition to you, something that I think LA can be lacking or it can be harder to find here is people making genuine connections. And like there's sometimes a real transactional nature. It feels like people meet you and they're like, what do you do? But not because they're curious, because they want to know how you can help them. And
Are you worth knowing?
right. Yeah. And
Hmm.
that isn't a question that any human being should really have to answer. And why would you want to like answer that when you feel like the only reason the person wants to know is to know what you can do for them? And so it's such a great note to network from a human perspective and like really ask people genuine questions, see how you can get to know them, and then maybe down the road you can collaborate.
I mean, yeah. I mean, well, first of all, that question is like so hurtful. And, do you know Brene Brown at
Yeah.
all?
I used to produce her podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's insane. I had a self-help era a couple years ago, and I was obsessed with Brene Brown. And one of the things that I think about a lot is this idea of proving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Proving that you belong, proving that you belong in the room, proving your title, your accolades, and all this kind of stuff. And then, honestly, I had a similar thing with some jobs that I had where I felt like I was constantly proving that it was worth doing, or that the work was good. This is the fact of the matter. The work that I was doing, I liked doing. I thought I was doing great work, but then I would enter into rooms when people would kind of like downplay my value or
Mm.
downplay the contributions that I made or whatever have you, especially in those networking scenarios where everyone's kind of like trying to say, are you worth knowing? And you're like, yes, I am worth knowing. Look at all these things. So I then worked really hard to not only have the skill set to back that up, but then also have a name or a brand attached to myself that could also say something to people to say that, hey, not only do I have the skill set, but I have this brand attached to me that comes with all of these things as well. And then what I was to find was that I ended up proving in a whole different way. Because now, I work for, among other things, a kids and family brand. And people now, when I talk about the work that I do, even though I'm like, oh, I work on global franchises. We have audiences that are ginormous, and we do all of these great things. We've done all these things. I say, oh, this is what I do, and they say, oh, cute, as if I am like the head of a nursery. No shade to people who lead nurseries, but you know what I mean. It's like that's kind of like how it is. And then I had to go back and say, like, I have to be good with me. I have to be good with the work that I am doing. I have to be good with how I show up in the world and not have all of this external validation in order to actually feel that my job is worth having or doing. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it totally makes sense. That's what I've been talking about on the pod for like the past 3 years because when I turned, are you 32 or 33?
33, yeah.
33. Okay. I had the same
But who's
realization.
counting?
Well, I was just going to say when I turned 33, I had this realization that I had this thought, like I always just like 100% believed that all of my dreams would come true. And then I had this thought like, oh my God, what if they don't? I will never prove that I am worthy. And then I thought, wait a second. If that's what it takes, I'm going to probably get there and then feel just as shitty inside when what I thought I wanted doesn't change how I feel on the inside. And if I don't get there, does that mean that I'm not worthy, that I didn't like deserve to take up space and be on this earth? And so I had to really work on how can I still have high ambition and uncouple my self-worth from what I do out in the world. Like, how can I really hone in on every single day, like working on believing who I am is the best thing about me? Because it's an inside job. And like, if you're always chasing outside things, you're never actually going to be happy.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second because what I'm keying on is the motivation, the things that drive you. I had something extremely negative driving me for the longest time.
Yeah.
So I got laid off from what was at the time a dream job, not the dream job, but a dream job.
Yeah. And let's just
And
like pause because so many people are laid off right now in general. Like that is an
yes,
inherently traumatic thing. Like I'm not saying it's like capital T trauma, but like depending, like it could be if you're in financial, like you really needed the job and you don't have enough savings, like it's a traumatic thing going through a layoff. So I just want to like put a pin in that because so many people are going through it right now.
yeah, it is extremely traumatic, especially if you've been in an organization for a very long time. Maybe you don't even know what it's like to work at somewhere different, or like in my case, you had the thing that you wanted, and now it was like ripped away from you, and you have to really, really adjust. And then at that time, what was one of the biggest motivations for me was trying to, once again, prove them wrong. Like, you missed out, buddy. You got rid of the best thing that could have happened to you. And I'm going to make sure that you know that you really crap the bed. Okay, I'm going to get this job. I'm going to make sure that I am posting on the LinkedIn. I'm going to make sure I have all the accolades. I'm going to make sure that you see it. And then, yeah, you like that, didn't you? Yeah, yeah. Comment on my post. Yes, you know that this is happening. I know that this is in your feed. And then it was maybe a year or two ago. The gentleman who laid me off from his company, he came into my DMs and he was basically just like, "Hey, I've been seeing all the great stuff that you've been doing out there, and I'm really, really happy for you." And then I was like, "Damn, now what?" You know what I mean? You got what you wanted. Now what? Now what is motivating you, right? You got exactly what you wanted. He saw it. I don't know if he regrets anything, but he certainly understands that you made something of yourself despite all odds. Now what are you going to do? Now you have to do this for you, you know? Now you have to do this for you.
So powerful. So now what? Like, what is motivating Nick Reid?
Wow, what a huge question. You know, it's like that Beyonce music video. You know the one.
Which one?
When she's like, "What is my aspiration in life?" That's that's a great question. Um,
Wait, is it Pretty
I
Hurts?
think it's I think it's pretty hurts. Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm the Beyonce of podcasting. Many have said it. Thank
I
you.
believe it. I believe it. Multi-winning, award-winning. Um, yes. The thing that drives me and motivates me now, I think it's a couple of things, honestly. One, I have always had an interest in many industries from like legacy entertainment, theater, film and TV. I just love entertainment. A lot of it makes me curious,
Mhm.
and I think the curiosity aspect of it all is what really drives me. I just really love learning more. I love people who love to have these conversations around this industry, entertainment, how people consume content, um, what drives people to actually click on something. These are all things that really spark my curiosity. And the process of learning is really what ends up driving me to the point where it sparks new ideas where I'm like, oh, I feel like I can be a part of the conversation of what's next. I'm really interested in what's coming next, what's upcoming when it comes to these industries and technology, especially when you think about where we have been in the past, even 5, 10 years. The job that I have right now did not exist 10 years ago, you know? So it's always about what we, as people who work in this industry, are doing in order to bring on what's coming in the future. Now, a lot of that is still very uncertain, and there's a lot of question marks about like what this exact future is going to be. You look outside and you see, okay, LA, we're trying to figure out what this industry is going to be moving forward. TikTok is not going to be TikTok in the next 6 months. YouTube is constantly changing, the algorithms are changing, how audiences are consuming content is changing. We're still trying to get people to go back into the movie theaters and understand what exactly is a streaming movie versus not. So these are the things that really motivate me, trying to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah, you're a true innovator. And that's what my definition of creativity is seeing something in your mind's eye and then creating it out in the world. And that's a big part of what you do. And I just want to say something like a piece of compassion for our younger selves, when we were motivated by maybe like less like wholesome things. That's what we needed in
Yeah.
those moments. I mean, you were very hurt. And so in order to get to the next phase in your life, you needed that motivation. And then at a certain point, you have some sort of realization, whether it was like a message from somebody that you had been like fighting for their approval from, or, regret, or both. Or for me, like realizing like if I keep getting dragged by my lack of self-worth, I'm never going to be happy. And maybe that like got me through my 20s, but I definitely don't want to get through my 30s that way. And so it's like you got to have compassion for your younger self and also realize it's not a good long-term plan to get motivated by something that isn't internal.
Yeah, yeah. And while we're also, you know, going to our younger selves and having compassion for them, I also, this is something I just realized this weekend, and it's that don't idolize that person either, because that person was, yes, young and unafraid and all that kind of stuff. But he was also still confused, didn't have a lot of context, still figuring a lot of stuff out. And there's still a lot of really wonderful things to learn from the person I used to be and things that I want to take into my future from that person, but also really taking a look at who I am today and saying, oh, you have grown a lot. You've learned a lot. You took that person and you like polished them up. You refined the entire experience and you are like dealing with new things that that person maybe wasn't at all ready for, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that is so
Yeah.
beautiful. It's true. It's like, I think we should take wisdom from the younger self, but also like not let them drive the car because at the end of the day, they're
Yeah.
just like a
There you go.
traumatized child. And like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we're living in autopilot. It's so weird that you brought that up. Like I wrote something earlier that I want to make into a Substack. And it's like, I think that we don't draw upon the wisdom of the inner child enough in creativity and like art. And we draw on it too much when we're triggered.
Mm,
We're not
that's
even conscious. We're
good.
not even drawing on it. It's just like in charge. It is making all the choices. And
Yeah.
it's like, hello, there's an adult here. But a lot of times our 7-year-old or 15-year-old or 25-year-old self is making all the choices for us. And we forget that we've grown.
Yes. Yes, that is so right on. Because, when we are in acting school and things, I think when it comes down to it, we're always trying to like get back to the kid mind, the child mind, when we had like fewer inhibitions, and that's what's going to like help us get to the truth of, inhabiting a character or whatever have you. But that is usually not where we are when it comes to creativity. We're like too logical. We're too cerebral with everything that we're trying to do. And like you said, it's all emotion. It's all child mind when it comes to how we are navigating emotions, interpersonal relationships,
Yeah.
how we show up in the world, things
Yeah.
that make us feel subconscious. All of those things are the child mind.
Yeah. So we just
That's a
got to
really great
swap them.
insight.
It's like bring the
Yeah.
child forward when we're ideating and like playing music and acting, and then let it step
Yes.
back when you're in the middle of some sort of conflict or you're feeling emotionally vulnerable. Like you have grown. You're not 5. You're okay. You're safe now. There's an adult here to take care of
Yes.
you.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh man, Nick, I love this conversation so much. I just love talking about life with you. I do really want to get into your path because it's so interesting and layered. And I think there's so many great personal development lessons from your career journey. I wonder if you would take me through, because I know the path in New York, it wasn't always smooth. You had some internships, those ended, and then you found yourself working in a Trader Joe's to make ends meet. Will you
Yeah.
take us to the moment when you broke down at Trader Joe's? Because we talked about this when we were chatting about what we were going to do in this interview, and people don't talk enough about how difficult your 20s are and how confusing they are, because they make it seem like you're supposed to have it all figured out and that if you have any bumps, you're a loser. And I think it's important to show that someone as successful as you are had these moments too. So if someone listening is in the middle of one, they can know they'll get out of it and they're not alone.
Yeah, sure. I always wondered if I would ever publicly tell this story, and might as well be on a Webby Award winning podcast that I reveal my Trader Joe's breakdown story.
We've all had one, believe me.
I know, yes. No, so I had been doing a lot of stuff in New York City. I had been bopping around. I've been doing all these internships. I had all of these like serving jobs, and all of those opportunities kind of ended. And this is when I was still auditioning and I was trying to figure out what the next step was. And at the time, I was like, you know what? I'll just get a job at Trader Joe's and then I'll be able to move into an apartment. So that was the main motivation at the time because I was living with multiple people in a two-bedroom. It was more than two people. It was more than three people. It was, it
More
was,
than
it was,
four.
it was, it just keeps going. So it was a situation where I was like, oh my God, I got to get into this apartment. I need a job. Let me go work at this Trader Joe's. Shout out to Trader Joe's. Love it. It just was not on the path for me. So I ended up getting the job and then I was like, okay, I'll just do this. I got health insurance. I'll be able to like go into the city and do auditions and I'll be cool. You know, this is going to be like the life. This is the life. And then, I was in my 20s. I, you know, would like indulge in a little green back in the day,
I'm catching what you're throwing.
right? And then I was just like, you know what? I'll just like do this shift like this. It's fine. I was hanging out with friends beforehand. I was like, whatever. I'm doing this, not recommended, not great way to work, not way to go to work. But anyway, that's what I ended up doing. And then I was doing the shift. I was getting groceries and stuff. And then I started having a panic attack when I like looked up and like realized it was like 11 a.m. I was like stoned in the Trader Joe's bagging groceries. And I was like, sorry, I don't know if I can curse on
Oh,
this
you can totally
podcast.
curse.
Okay, great. I said, fuck. I like work at a grocery store. And I like worked so hard to get this degree and spent all this money to get this degree and move to New York City. This is not what I wanted to do. And I had a panic attack in the grocery store. I tore up this lady's paper bag while packaging up her groceries, and then I called my mom, bawling, like this is not the way that this was supposed to be. But then I guess what motivated me in that moment was to take control. To quote Aida, you are your own master. There are no shackles on you. So,
Thank God we had an Aida quote in this. I don't know how it would have gone
yes,
on.
exactly. I know, right? So I went in, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this. And I went and thought about it for a while. Like, what is it that I need? First of all, I need the job. But now with this job at Trader Joe's, I was like, okay, I have a baseline. I know how much I need to be making, which I think was like around like $700 a week or something like that. So I was like, okay, I know what I need to make in order to like make my rent. That's my baseline. I need to go find something in the theater business because that's what I was doing at the time that will at least make me that. I had an interview with someone who was like, I'm actually leaving this job, but I actually know someone who needs help. You would be a great fit for her. And then I ended up working with this woman who basically did merchandise sales in Broadway theaters. So boom, now I'm back on Broadway, working in the evenings, managing merchandise sales across a few theater houses.
There he is. He's arrived, folks. I want to get to that because you said something really interesting when we chatted about this before about that merchandising job. But before that, if there's someone listening who is either in the middle of their Trader Joe's breakdown moment or feels like they're about to hit it, what would be your advice to them and why?
I think my advice would really be, and first of all, I want to say that if you are working a Trader Joe's job and you are like meeting all your goals in which you're trying to achieve, then party. But when it comes down to it for me, like that was not on my 5-year plan. That was not what I had envisioned for myself or where I wanted to go, or even how I wanted to like support myself while I was achieving whatever the goals that I have were. So I would say, and this is how it is with everything, it's to really key in on what your goal is. And I don't even think it has to be like your like end goal. Like, what is your goal for like the next 5 years? What did you want to accomplish this year? What do you want to accomplish in this city that you're in right now? And then do you have the things around you? Do you have the people around you, the resources in order to make that happen? With me, I had left a bunch of different Broadway internships. This was before I was actually laid off from the Broadway job. So I didn't have that job yet. But I had all of these internships that I had been doing. I was working in the theater industry, and all of those opportunities just stopped. And I realized that I no longer was interested in auditioning. I wanted to be back in that administrative commercial theater world that I had been working in. So in order to do that, I was going to give myself as many opportunities to find success. I'm going to work in the theater. So I'm in the theater industry. Now I'm not working in those offices, but now I am working in the same kind of like the same like heartbeat as other theater professionals. That kind of like ladders up to those types of jobs that I want. I know what people are talking about. I know what opportunities are happening. I'm going to the same shows that the people in those offices are going to. I even had someone who I had interned with see me selling scripts during Al Pacino's China Doll, who came up to me and said, "Nick, are you working here right now?" And I kind of just nodded yes. And he was just like, "Hey, this is going to be a funny story one day." And here we are laughing about it.
But okay, there's a couple things to point out from what you just said. The first thing that you said to me is when we talked about this before, you said you needed to be near inspiration. And I think that that's something important for somebody to hear, because proximity does matter. Like if you feel like you're on the outs from what you really want to do, even getting closer to it is a step in the right direction. Now, you don't want to get stuck in something you don't want to do, but getting closer for a strategic period of time is great. So that merchandising job was so important because it led you on this whole path to what you're doing now. And then that thing that he said to you, this will be a fun story someday. I know that brought up a lot of emotion in you at that time. And like looking back on it, how do you think of that moment? Like what was that moment for you then? And how do you reflect on it now?
I mean, in the moment, it was definitely embarrassing to a point. But then I think this is why we love our younger selves, because they are so determined and dreamy. And at that time, I was determined for this to be a funny story. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was like, that was so crazy. That was so traumatizing that he said this to me. I'm going to make sure that this is going to be a funny story one day,
So
you know?
I do know, and it is. It's literal LOL moment. Um,
Right.
so, I mean, I just love your grit, because then you also, like in that time period, decided to get another internship. And I relate to this. When I was 26, I actually got an internship at AfterBuzz TV, and that is how I learned how to produce. And I really believe sometimes we have to go backward in order to go forward. And why was that so pivotal for you, and where did it lead you?
Yeah. So that was the moment where I think you have to be open to possibilities, but you also have to make choices. And that was really me making a choice. That was because I had already had two internships in New York City, and I had done internships in college as well. And if you're counting, please don't. I'm like pretty old at this point to be doing internships, right? And like you say, you have to go backwards to go forward. I was willing to eat shit in order to be back in the place that I believe that I belonged. So what I did was like I worked hard to get this internship that didn't pay very well, and which meant I had to keep working my merchandise job. It was actually perfect because I worked off of 38th Street in New York City. I would work Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at the internship, 10 to 5. And then at 5 o'clock, I would go over to the Broadway theater that I was working at that night and work from 6 to 10 doing the merchandise sales for that show, except for Wednesdays and Sundays, which were Saturdays, which were 2 show days. So I'm working 7 days a week at this point. If you're counting, you can count now.
To know how hard of a worker I am, count.
Yes, count so you know how hard I've been working to get to where I am today. But I was determined, and what that led to was me getting a full-time job at this place. And I think that was also because I was very clear with what I wanted from the beginning. I let them know you're going to get a really great person, a really great worker, someone who has been doing this a little bit before. And my next step here is to get a full-time position. I would love for it to be here, but I will gladly go elsewhere. And I'm willing to do this type of work in order to get in. And luckily, they heard that and heard me and was able to transition me into full time after I had spent some time there. And I feel very emotional about that now because I have a job in corporate now where I know that transition is not easy and sometimes not even possible, no matter how much your manager or even your team loves you. Sometimes there's just not a head available for you, which is also why it was good that I worked at this, boutique agency and not like corporate where there's so much red tape to get through. And I didn't even think of that as a strategic move, but that is something to consider. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you were so bold and clear about what you want really helped you get there because, like you said, you told them from the beginning, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work really hard and this is where I want to go. And the fact that they heard that, it's because you took a chance on yourself. And I'm very happy you did. And there was this other.
And can I say one thing?
Please.
Let me say one thing about
everything.
that too, because I'm not old, but I'm definitely older than I used to
I'm
be.
ancient, Nick.
And oh, me looking at Laura LaGrasso at the Summer Circle Theater, like, wow, what a cool woman. I can't wait to be her one day. I never was, mind you, because you were iconic.
Oh my
and I
gosh.
never rose to that occasion in school.
Oh, shut up.
But
You're doing amazing things. I admire you so much. We're all ourselves, and that is beautiful.
Yes. But I will say, because I see it now, even if you look online, people take, how can I say this? You have a lot of leeway when you're young. You can be very bold when you're young. People get tired of it at a certain age. Your boldness, and by all means continue to be bold, but like if you are a young person, if you're like in your 20s still and you're listening to this, take those chances because people will be open to you. You can make mistakes right now in a way that when you're a bit older, people might give you a little side eye, so
yeah. It's true. People are much more open to younger people taking chances. But I will say they love stories of people who are older. And if we're saying older is like above 30, like anybody really who's above 30,
right.
who decides that they're going to make something different out of their lives. Like They don't love the story when it first happens, but once it comes to fruition, why do you think we see all these things of being like, so-and-so didn't publish their first book till they were 65. Whoever didn't make their first business till they were 53.
This is true.
It's like they love
You know
it
why?
once the underdog proves themselves worthy, but when they're in the midst,
Yes.
they're like, this person's a psychopath.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. And I think this is why right now there's this trend going on that like Gen Z is afraid of being cringe. And the thing about it is like, just lean into the cringe. Maybe that's what it is. When we're younger, we're like less afraid to lean into the cringe, or we were
Yeah.
less afraid to lean into the cringe. You know?
I think that's part of it. And I think part of why people like the stories of older people making something of themselves is because it proves to them that they're not stuck in the narrative that they've set up for their own lives. Because the truth is,
Yes.
we never are. Yes, it was easier when I was before 25, before my prefrontal cortex had finished developing and I was too dumb to know any better. It was easier then, but not because it was actually easier, just because I thought it was easier because I didn't have a fully developed brain. So it is harder once your brain kind of settles in, but it is still possible. And like on the Gen Z thing, like I genuinely feel bad for these kids because like if caring is cringe, sign me the fuck up. Like I am in. I love being cringe. I love being myself. I love being out there. I love trying. If trying is cringy, I'm the cringiest person on earth and I love it.
Yes, yes. I mean, how about that? That's the difference between the haves and the have-nots, is the people who try and the people who don't.
Yeah. Well, consider me a have.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, okay, I love this moment in your story too, Nick, where a bartender changed your life. And it's when he asked you, do you know this show called Steven Meets the Universe? Tell me about this inciting incident and how it kind of indirectly led you down the path you're on now.
Okay, this is great. First of all, if your listeners are who I think they are, they know that the show is actually called Steven Universe. First name Steven, last name Universe.
He didn't meet it? Damn it.
He did not meet the universe, or maybe he did. No spoilers for me.
Yeah.
But no, it really did change my life in many ways. Oh, this is a great place to tell this story. I love it.
Perfect.
So
We did it.
So I'm doing. Yes, we did it. We did it. I'm at this I'm managing merchandise sales. And the Broadway theaters. And then, we're all like in the basement hanging out while the show is going on. So what was I working on, just to like give you a time frame? I was working on Gin Game with Cicely Tyson and James Earl Jones. May they both rest in peace. And also Lupita Nyong'o was doing a play at the same time. And I was like going back and forth between houses. So I'm in the basement talking with the bartenders there in between the show. And there's this guy, he's like, oh my God, I love animation. And I love animation too, but I hadn't really like dove in deep into it in a while. I've been like jumping around New York City, been working, and I'm not even like watching content really right now. I'm just like pounding the pavement. And he's like, oh, I love this show, Steven Universe. You should definitely watch it. I said, okay. I don't watch it. But I am working my butt off. I end up getting this job at this Broadway marketing agency, did lots of shows, worked on Wicked, worked on The Color Purple with Cynthia Erivo. I worked on Dear Evan Hansen up until I won the Tony. I attended the 2017 Tony Awards. And then that opportunity ended when they laid me off. And that's kind of like when that whole like shattering thing was happening. The world was shattered. And then I had to deal with what a lot of people are dealing with now, which is unemployment and navigating that. And then all that comes with it as well. So I end up finally depressed enough to get my butt over to Hulu and watching some cartoons to like ease some of my worries. And here's that show that guy was talking about. Let me check it out. Oh, wow, this is really good. Oh, the show has a lot of really lovely songs in it. Oh, I really, really love these cast of characters. And oh, there's a plot. Let me get into this plot. Okay, I've watched everything. Now I kind of want to spend more time with these characters. Let me see what they have on YouTube because, I don't have cable. Oh my gosh, there's tons of creators on YouTube who are talking about this show. Now I'm getting more familiar with these creators in addition to the TV show. And I'm like learning about this entire online world of creators in general that make up the platform. You're not just going to YouTube to figure out how to program my dishwasher. Now you're watching content on there. And I was doing that before, but I had kind of like weaned myself off of it. And my unemployment had ended when I ended up going to this, let's call it a YouTube talent agency. Let's call it an MCN back in the day. And, they were looking for someone to help with talent acquisitions. And I was like at the end of my rope. I was so desperate for a job. I was in a place where I would take anything. But then I also, ended up being a really great get for them, particularly because they're like, do you know talent? Do you know YouTube talent? And at that point, I was like, well, yeah, I do. I can name a few people off the top of my head who I just know because I've been watching them because I've been watching Steven Universe, and they make content about them. And then, they say actually a lot of those people you just mentioned are people that we work with directly. They're in our network, and from there, I ended up getting a full-time job at this company, Frederator, if you are familiar with it. And that opportunity had me make really, really wonderful friends, some of which that I had been able to take to or go with to new opportunities, like the job that I have now, which I wouldn't have had I not watched that show, learned about the platform, learned about those people, and was able to speak about it confidently with the people at that YouTube company.
Yeah. And I think it's a great example of how following an impulse and then following a passion can actually lead you into an opportunity. Like, I had a very similar thing with radio where I fell in love with SiriusXM talk radio, and there was a show called Cocktails with Patrick and Wake Up with Taylor that I used to listen to and I loved. And then I kept saying like, I'm going to work on SiriusXM someday. And then I randomly ended up meeting the lady who created those shows, who ended up creating a job for me at SiriusXM. It was like what you had, like a part-time job, but then I parlayed it into a full-time job. And that's what started my whole professional career in media. So following your
Yeah.
passion is underestimated. Yeah, like you don't want to like spend your whole life just like going down like a YouTube or a podcasting rabbit hole, but
Hmm.
following what you're genuinely obsessed with isn't a waste of time and can often lead to things, even if it's just inspiration.
It also feeds back to our original point around networking, that idea that you don't know how this conversation can affect the rest of your life. And you would never, I would, if I was the person that was like, oh, are you someone worth talking to? Bartender of the basement of a Broadway theater, I would not have gotten the intel about this television show that I would then watch, then become obsessed with, that would lead me down this rabbit hole onto YouTube, that would familiarize me with this platform that I am now like working hard, my hardest to be an expert at to this day, you know, like you really do have to be open to all of the possibilities because you never know what is going to be that thing that is going to like change your entire life. And if you're open to it, I do believe that the universe, no pun intended, leads you down the path that you're supposed to be on.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that the smartest, most talented, and um, just like really smart business people I've worked with don't care where a good idea comes from if it's a good idea. And the idea that like you don't think that anyone could teach you something or that you could be inspired by any person, like you really could. You never know who's going to change your life or what they might say that might change your direction. So I love that you pointed that out.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I miss about New York City is that whether you like it or not, you will wind up in a conversation or something at some point in time that you did not intend to be in on. And, but that can be really interesting and cool sometimes because now you're like, I never thought about that before, or I'm going to look that up now. Or, I was back in the day when we used to do shared Ubers. Remember
TBT.
that?
I do
Yeah,
actually.
Uber
I was in
pool.
like a really weird one once. But you know what? No, actually, that saved me. I'll save it for another time. I'll tell you off air. It was a crazy story.
Well, they're gonna be desperate for it. Come on, you
Okay, so
give
I'll
it
tell
to
you quickly.
them.
What happened was I got in a shared Uber, but the Uber driver was creepy, and I really feel the other person in the car saved me from him. He was saying that he wished the other
Mm.
person and it was a guy who got in with me. And he was saying he wished the other person wasn't there so he could be alone with me. It was really creepy. And so I was so grateful in that moment that it was in a shared Uber because I felt like that guy who was riding with me protected me.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. See, we need to bring Uber pools back.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, maybe. I think.
In that instance, it was very
Well,
good for me.
yes, well, in this instance, it was good for me too. I was riding with this woman from San Francisco, and then, we're pretty close in this car. So I was just like, so what do you do? And then at the time, I'm working at a Frederator, and I'm just like, well, I had this like weird YouTube job, or I didn't call it a YouTube job. I called it a millennial job because I was like, oh yeah, it's like the future. It's YouTubers. Like it's not traditional media. This was if you can remember, this is back when there was only Netflix. There were no other streaming platforms. Maybe we had Hulu, but it wasn't like the Hulu we have today. We were still in the cable world. So I was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I have this like millennial job on YouTube, and I described what it was, and she was like, wow, that's really, really interesting. It sounds like you can that a lot of companies are going to need people like that really, really soon and a lot of people. And I said, yeah, I guess that's true. And she's like, yeah, and there's not a lot of people that do what you do. So you can like be an expert at it really, really quickly. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's true. And she's like, yeah, it sounds like you can also be like one of like the faces of the industry if you like work hard at it. I was like, yeah, I guess that's true. I and then honestly, from that Uber pool ride, I recontextualized my job and what I did completely. Right. So then that leads us back to when we were talking about proving. Like before, I was like, oh, I don't have the job. I don't have this, that, and the third. It's like, no, I do have the job. I have the perfect job for me. I just didn't look at it in the right way. And I needed, unfortunately, this external validation in order to help me see the truth. My job did not change. It's just the way that I thought about it changed. And it really, once again, is something that led me to where I am today.
And you know what? Like, to reframe even that, like, I don't think you needed the external validation. You just needed her to mirror for you what was already occurring and to expand your mind of the possibility of what was happening and what could happen down the road. Because you have, if we trace the lines of your path, always been a person who, when you've envisioned something, you've made it happen. And so, but you need to have that vision in order to lead you toward the next thing. So you've done exactly what she told you to do. Can you share your journey from Frederator to now and what you're doing now?
My journey from Frederator to now. So there was a point in time in Frederator where, and I think this is true for many jobs where it just kind of like feels like
It's time.
it's coming to an end. It's time. And at that point, I had done a lot of really great work within influencer marketing. I had learned a lot about the platform. I even started going to conferences and really trying to understand the space that I was working in, not just the job that I have, but like the industry that I was occupying space in as well. And then, and doing a lot more networking. That is not necessarily how I got my Oh, well, I can't say it's not how I got my next job. I ended up becoming familiar with a lot of people on different teams that work in legacy media that also worked in the YouTube space. And then I had a friend of mine who lost his job, move over to where I'm the company that I currently work at, Paramount Global Nickelodeon. And he was able to connect me with someone who was actually hiring on their team in the YouTube world. And this was someone that I actually had already met attending a conference. So they were already sort of aware of who I was. And then, of course, I went through the entire like traditional hiring process and talked to a bunch of different people. But, when it came down to it, I ended up being the right person for the job and the job at the time. And what's really funny about a lot of places that you work, sometimes you get hired to do a job or a semblance of a job, but the job doesn't really come into fruition until you occupy the role.
That is so true. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you come in to do one thing, but then the job actually turns into whoever you are. And
Yeah, it's true. And honestly, like, I wish more workplaces, and this is like, I'm just speaking from my own experience right now, but I wish more workplaces would see that they're absolutely nothing without their people. Like, a job is nothing without its people. A workplace is nothing without its people. People are what bring life to any project or place.
I totally agree. And it's funny, there's so much texture that's added to the work because of the people that occupy certain roles. A lot of the times, and I know this to be true because I work where I work, and then it's really funny because you see like bits and pieces of you in all of the work that is consumed by masses, and no one would ever know the bits and pieces of you that are in all of these projects necessarily, especially if you're not like directly on a creative team, or you're not like specifically writing on a project, or you're a showrunner or anything like that. But your work is still out there, and you make your mark in really significant ways that I guess only you would know, but you also do understand the impact.
Yeah. And the energy. Like, I don't remember if we talked about this last time we chatted, but I have directly seen, and you'll appreciate this because you work in audience growth and development, but like, I have directly seen the energy behind a show impact its download numbers. Because
yeah, of course,
when something is made with love, I believe people can feel that. And when something is made from scarcity or a place of lack, I believe people can feel that too.
I totally agree. Which project are you speaking of?
I can't say, but I've seen it directly happen. And also, like, when there's discord within a team, I've seen it and the content has not changed. The content has not changed, but the energy behind it changes, and then you see it in the way it's received.
No, you're totally right. I have like 3 examples I'm thinking of right now. I'm sure your audience can think of a few as well, where it's like something is off, the energy doesn't feel right. One of the biggest studios just came out with a film that it just didn't feel right when it was out, and I guess a lot of people didn't watch it. And now more is being revealed where we're like, oh, that's why it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
That's why we weren't drawn to the film. That's why we aren't going there. And then on the opposite end, I'll talk about this one right now. I'm obsessed with K-pop Demon Hunters. It's great. It's great. It's so fun. The animation is amazing. You can see that the team behind it loved it, and they had a really, really great time making it. The music is fire, and then everyone on the internet is obsessed with it. Everyone's obsessed. There's like a cultural moment happening behind this project, and that is something that nowadays feels kind of rare.
Yeah.
When when you have one of those, but when it happens, it's palpable. you know, and it's easy to just think about the dollars and cents behind it and like what people care about. I'm sure they'll franchise it, they'll merchandise it up the wazoo, but what it means when you go back to like the human element of it, what it means to people to have something like that out there, to have a project or a piece of art that they align with or they feel represents them and their experience. And it's also something that they feel excited to share with others. Like that's amazing.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And it's like, I just feel like what you're describing is all of the people consuming it, all of the fandom continuing to resonate on the energy that it was created with. So it's just like a
Yeah.
continuation of the energy. But like to get to a less woo-woo place, like that's what I
Yeah.
believe from
Yeah.
like a woo-woo point of view. And I've seen it happen. Like I obviously can't prove it empirically, but I've seen it with my own
Yeah.
two eyes. But like from a strategic point of view, because there's so many indie creators who are listening right now who want to build audiences. If you could give them some advice, like I remember you said something like you bring in like the super objective that we learned in acting class. Like what you don't
Mhm.
have to use that, but like what would be a piece of advice or a few pieces of advice on how they can start to build or grow their audience?
Okay, great. Clip this. Just kidding.
No, I will. I'm going to replay it for myself.
Yes, exactly. How to build and grow an audience. I think the first thing that everyone needs to really hone in on is your goal. What are you trying to do? Oftentimes, people really think about what they're trying to make and the content first, and oh, it'll be funny if I, or what I want to make is, no, overall, what are you trying to do? What is your goal? And then after that, who are you trying to speak to? Who is your audience? You know, who is this piece of whatever it is? Who is it for? Who are you trying to build for? And then once you're able to understand what your goal is, who you're trying to make the content for, then you'll be able to very quickly go and say, okay, I know what I need to make. I know how to appeal to this audience type. I understand what my goal is, and I know how this piece of art or this podcast or this video will be able to resonate with this target audience.
Bam.
And that's what it is every single time.
So good. What do you feel like creates loyalty where somebody will either come back time after time or go from one project to the next and convert? What have you seen as a through line on that?
Loyalty.
Like
Hmm.
brand loyalty.
There's a few things I think. I think one of the bigger ones is people say authenticity. I think that's true. I think authenticity is really useful, but I think more than that is reliability, you know? And that can take many different forms. It could be, oh, you know that every Wednesday you're going to get an episode drop and they're going to be consistent with those drops. Or if you go on vacation, they know when you're going on vacation and when you're coming back, you know? Or they know that you are going to be interviewing people that feel like they align with the values of this program or the values of this audience, or you're going to be able to take to task people that don't. You know, it's really once again about the audience that you end up cultivating and how you're able to work with them. Like an example of this, of the opposite way, I have someone I know that did a podcast, and then they ended up making some type of like political episode that really fell into some like extreme right wing algorithms. And then they ended up getting all of these views and engagements on their content from this like right wing audience vertical. And they're like this gay dude and this girl, and they're and then this is like not their content at all. And then he's coming to me and he's like, what do I do? How do I capitalize on this? Do I start making right-wing content? And I'm like, is that the audience that you want? Is that like it, you're a sketch comic who, and you're gay, and this is not your audience. This is not who you're trying to appeal to. You can't be so attracted to views. You can't be so attracted to numbers that you're not making the content that you want to make or achieving your goals anymore. Now you're just after views. Now you're just after numbers. And that's where everyone gets messed up because you're not going to be able to sustain that content. You don't even want to make it. You're eventually just going to piss off this audience vertical that you've developed, or you develop it. Wait, sorry.
I love that.
This is the creator economy person in me. Or you develop this audience of people that you don't really like, and then you sell it to someone else who can actually make good on that audience, and then you just take the money and run and make something else. That's if you want to be an economist.
If you want to have integrity, do it the first way. No.
Right.
I mean, it's fine.
right.
Like, I think as long as you're clear about that, it's
Oh yeah. Well, here it is. What is your goal?
right.
Maybe your goal is to just make huge channels, cultivate huge audiences, and then sell them to people who need those verticals.
Mhm.
I just need a huge audience of conservative gamers, and I know how to build that audience. Okay, I got them. Now I'm going to give this channel over to someone who's just starting out, who needs an audience of activated conservative gamers for their conservative gaming content.
Wow, I didn't even know that was an audience. See, you're teaching me so much. Like, how do you even learn? So you're like, know who you want to talk to. If you were developing a show from scratch, would you say you find who you think you'll talk to and then you keep iterating based on who actually shows up?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think you can definitely. It's kind of like what we're talking about earlier when we're just you have to have a path. You have to not have an idea of where you're gonna go, and then pivot as you get more information as things change, right? So you should definitely go in with an idea of who you want to talk to, an idea of what your goal is, and then start making your stuff. And then be really savvy with understanding the data and analytics, or get someone to help you, like a YouTube analyst or a podcast analyst, and someone who understands insights and can make them make sense to you from a real way. And then you understand, okay, I really was making this podcast for myself, but then also creatives who are just out of college and yada, yada, yada. But then you realize, creatives outside of college right now, they were like me back in the day. They don't have time to listen to a podcast. They're waiting tables and bussing things or whatever it is. They're actually not the ones listening to your podcast. You have actually millennial men and women who are in their entry level jobs, and they're those are the ones who are listening to your podcast right now. It's not people just out of college. Okay, now you have more information. Now you slightly pivot your content. Now you kind of pivot it toward these people who are actually listening to your stuff. And then maybe you're okay, I have these people. These are my foundation. They're so good. They're sticky. They're amazing. I want to bring in maybe another audience for some reason. Maybe this audience vertical has disposable income more than the ones that you're currently talking to, and you have some merch to sell. Okay,
I might just sometime soon. Oh,
you might
tease.
just okay. Right. So maybe then you're okay, I need to be talking to some high earning women who do a lot of traveling in their cars to work or whatever it is. Okay. So maybe now your content kind of changes a little bit to appeal to that audience a little bit more. This is kind of like what we're talking about. And the longer you actually listen to a podcast, you can kind of see and understand how it kind of changes over some time.
Mm-hmm.
Like a good example of what I listen to Las Culturistas with Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers. Love their podcast. I think it's really fun. You can see that it's maintained the tenets of what the podcast has been from the beginning, the longer you listen to it. But you also understand okay, now they're getting more women that are listening to the podcast. It's not just like gay guys and their friends. Okay, now they're getting more celebrities that are listening to the podcast. Now they're getting like higher caliber celebrities like Michelle Obama on their podcast now. Now the content is slightly changing, but then also they're like, well, we also need to maintain who we are and what we are. So they're still doing the podcast in the way that appeals to their base, you know?
Wow. You've given us so much to think about. I mean, honestly, we could do a whole episode just about this because, as we mentioned, you are an expert in the field. But that's so great. And what I took from that is I'm going to start thinking about the shows and things that I love and kind of trying to backtrack of like how they've figured out their audience development and how they continue to evolve and kind of look at it like a geometry proof and figure out, okay, they did that. How can I apply that to what I'm doing within my own context?
Yeah. Here's a fun thing that you can even do because, podcasts are now visual in addition to auditory. You can even see it when it comes to thumbnails. Look at thumbnails for your favorite podcasters and see how they used to package their content back in the day and how that has iterated over time. And then ask yourself, and I hope they're asking this themselves too, who's this for? I ask this all the time, and it pisses people off sometimes too. Who's this for? Who is this for? And if you can't name them, you have a problem. Or if you name who it's for, and it's like, well, that's not what you're selling, then you have a problem.
Well, this show is for male truckers. No, I'm kidding. No, but actually, one of the people who listen to it is a very creative person who happens to drive a truck for a living, and she's like been one of my most loyal followers. It's a woman trucker. But she would like listen to it and it reactivated her love of painting and art. And like, it's just, you really don't know where you're going to meet people. And that's cool too. Like there is room for, yes, this is who I think I'm going to be reaching, but it could go so much wider. And like, yeah, it could be like the conservative people, or it could be like, it could be anywhere. So yeah, it's great to like keep paying attention to it and iterating as you go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keep paying attention, iterate as you go, and also realize when you have it. When you have it, lock it in. Understand this is for blank, and make sure you're always super serving them. Because if you don't have them, then you don't have anyone else.
So
everyone else is just cake. This is the meal. This is the meal.
I love it. Well, Nick, you are so brilliant. You're also so wise. And I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your heart, your brilliance, your talent. And I can't wait to see what you do next. Sky's the limit for you. And I'm so happy we finally did this.
Me too. I'm very happy to be on an award-winning podcast. I hope you win another. And I appreciate the time. I love to talk.
Oh, you're good at it. I think you should have one of these.
To be continued.
Okay, you better. All right, my love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and thanks to my guest, Nick Reid. For more info on Nick, follow him on Instagram at nick.noise_ and find him on LinkedIn by searching Nick Reid. And keep an eye out. This is only the beginning of what he's building. So check that guy out. So inspired by him. Unleash Your Inner Creative is hosted and executive produced by me, Lauren Lagrasso, edited by Blondell Garcon, with theme music by Liz Full. Again, thank you, my sweet creative cutie, for listening. If you like the show, please rate, review, follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're on Spotify, leave us a comment, share the show with a friend. Podcasts are shared person to person, and post about us on social media. Tag me at Lauren Lagrasso and at Unleash Your Inner Creative, and I will repost to share my gratitude. My wish for you this week is that you take one small, imperfect step forward, just to remind yourself that you can. No one gets to define your timeline but you. And maybe, in all of its mess, it's perfect. I love you, and I believe in you. Talk with you next week.